A couple of years ago, one of my nephews, he was a delightful tyrant. He was about 4 or 5 at the time. And he had this habit where he would tell me what I was going to do, and then I would repeat back to him, I'm going to do that, and then he would say, uh-huh, and then I would do whatever he said. So one day, I'm at his house, my sister's house, where he lives, and he says to me, we're going to play hide and seek. I said, we're going to play hide and seek? He said, uh-huh. And then he said, you're going to be on my team. I said, I'm going to be on your team? He said, uh-huh. And then I was like, okay. He's like, so we start the game, and his siblings go run out wherever they're going to be. And so we're about to hide, and he said, we're going to hide behind the couch. And I thought it was a terrible hiding spot. So I said to him, we're going to hide behind the couch? And he said, uh-huh. So I was like, okay. So we're sitting behind the couch, and it's a terrible hiding spot, and I'm just waiting to be found by one of my other nieces and nephews. And I'm sitting on the floor, and he's kind of standing, and we're kind of eye level, but I'm just kind of waiting. And then I turn to the right to look at him, and he's staring at me, and he looks like this. And I said, oh, hey, buddy. And he said, this is great. I was like, yeah. And he's like, this is great. And I discovered something that day, which is for him, it's not really about the game. It's not really the place we were. It's the fact that we were together. That for him was what the best part was. And I'm reminded of that today because Jesus offers us something today that I think leads to both freedom and it leads to fellowship. And in the gospel today, Jesus tells us a story about a dinner party he's at. And when he's at this dinner party, he notices that people are deciding where they want to sit. And that was a thing in the ancient world, which is you sat according to importance or honor. So it's actually a very practical question. When you went into a social situation that was like a formal dinner, depending on how important you thought you were is how close you'd move up to the places of honor, or unimportant you'd move down to the places of not honor. And he notices that people are choosing the places of honor at the table. And so when he sees that, he tells them, oh no, when you're invited, you should go to the lowest place. Why? Well, he says the person that sits too high, the host might approach them and say, oh, my friend, you're not that important. Switch spots with this person and go down to a lower place. And he said, you're going to be embarrassed. And if you think about it in life, so many times we feel slighted or offended. I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they have the gall. I can't believe they didn't notice me. That's usually rooted in a spirit of entitlement, which is usually rooted in a spirit of pride. Like, they should have noticed me. I'm important. Don't they know that? And so what Jesus is offering us by saying, whenever you go into a situation, just go to the lowest place, he's offering freedom from that. The freedom of being put out, offended, annoyed, having to play this game of who's who in the zoo, who's important, who's not. Jesus says, you don't have to play any of that. Just find the lowest place and go there. And there's a Saint John of the Cross, he said that he would never share something with another person that would make them think more highly of him. Why? Because he had a low self-esteem? I think it's the opposite. I think what he was trying to do is root his identity in the Lord's love for him. I want to root my identity in Jesus, not what the world thinks, not in worldly honor, which comes and goes, but rather what God thinks of me. That's a place of freedom. And friends, imagine if we actually did that. Like you're at Thanksgiving, and you go into this situation thinking, what is the most humble place? What is the lowest place? What job does nobody want to do? What uncle does nobody want to talk to? I'm going to go do that. I'm going to do that job. Or I go into a work or my school or some social situation, and I ask Jesus, what's the lowest place in this situation? And that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go. How different our lives would be. How different we would see various situations. So I think it's a place of freedom. Freedom from being offended and self-importance and thinking we're more important than we are. I also think it's a place of fellowship. Why? Because I think in the lowest place is where you're going to find Jesus. For my nephew Joel, the game hide and seek was not about being behind the couch, was not about the game. It was just about being together. And in the lowest place is where we find Jesus. Jesus is the God who washes our feet. He's the God who says, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. And so in the lowest place, I think Jesus is waiting for us there. I mean, think about if you went to a dinner party and Jesus of Nazareth is in the room, but you miss him. because you're too busy looking at where everyone is sitting and, oh, that person? I should definitely be ahead of that person. I mean, come on. I'm not sure his mom likes him. You know what I mean? Rather than looking for the lowest place. And St. Francis of Assisi once said, who a person is in the eyes of God is who a person is and nothing more. That's who you are. That's who I am. Not what the world thinks of me, but what Jesus thinks of me. And I've always loved this image. It comes from the Divine Comedy of Dante. He has the Inferno, which is their walk through hell. Then you have the Purgatorio, through purgatory, and the Paradiso, through heaven. And in the Purgatorio, they're going up this mountain, and the reparation you do is because of the sin you most struggled with. And on the second level of the mountain is for people who struggled with envy. People who got sad when they saw other people who had more than them. Like somebody who's sitting at the place of the banquet that I think I should be ahead of that person. And their punishment is that they have their eyelids sewn shut, which I love. And it comes from an image of falconers, people who trained falcons in the ancient world. They would often sew things over the falcon's eyes to teach them to listen to their owner. And so what they have to do in punishment for their sins is they have their eyes sewn shut. In other words, don't look at other people. That was your sin. You're always sizing things up, and where am I, and where are they, and who's ahead of this other? Jesus says, don't look at them. Well, then who would I look at, Jesus? Just look at me. Where are you? I'm in the lowest place. I'm in the most humble place. I'm the God who washes your feet. I'm the God who associates with the poor. That's where I am. I remember meeting this really delightful couple, and the husband relayed this to me from his wife. And they had something that happened in their family, and a lot of people were talking about it, and it was kind of scandalous, and they were like a really Catholic family, and wow, I can't believe this happened. And he said, my wife tells me often, she reminds me that what other people think of us is none of our business. Right? What other people think of me is none of my business. In other words, I'm not going to focus on that. Who's in, who's out. I'm just going to focus on what the Lord wants me to focus on. And what's that? Well, Jesus is found in the lowest place. That's why it's a place of freedom and a place of fellowship.